You're muted, Kendra.
I'm going to go ahead and start right now. We're kind of searching for Bob Johnson, but we will look for him and add him hopefully very soon. But on behalf of the ACES Alumni Association, I just want to thank each and every one of you for joining us this evening. Um, as you know, the Award of Merit is the highest award that we present to the ACES Alumni Association, and we honor your career achievement and your service and everything that you have done for us as a college and for the University of Illinois. So we thank you, and we are so glad you're a part of this evening's panel. Traditionally, as you probably know, this is part of the day, like we discussed a little bit earlier, but so for everyone to know that when you would arrive on campus, you would be part of different things that day. You would be part of coffee with the dean, a luncheon, a dinner that evening, and then this panel discussion usually took place in a classroom. We just felt like it was such an integral part of the day that we didn't want to lose that. And we wanted to make sure that we were able to learn as much as possible from you, both as faculty and staff, and also as our students. And so tonight is going to be a little bit different, but we really are excited to include this as part of the celebration, even a week later. But thank you again for joining us. I know your time is so valuable. A couple housekeeping notes. We are recording this session tonight, and I really anticipate a lot of people will see it later as well. All attendees are currently muted, and you can't see a lot that's going on tonight. The panelists, you're able to see the question and answer. Keep in mind one thing. The chat feature does not allow for any private messaging. So, be careful what you say about my hair, which has been in the rain all day, or anything else. But you're muted. We have the prepared questions ready to go, and you can submit questions. The attendees can submit questions in the Q&A section. So as time allows, we'll do our best to work those in as well. So I would like to go ahead and introduce Anna. Anna Ball's our Associate Dean for the Academic Programs Office in the College of ACES. She's an alum, a 1996 alum in ag education. She's from Fairview, which is located in Fulton County. And she was a former JBT scholar as well. She taught high school agriculture for 3 years before working on her PhD at the University of Missouri. Her first faculty position was here in the college, and that was from 2002 to 2006. She served a number of faculty and administrative roles at the University of Florida, and that was between 2006 and 2008, and the University of Missouri from 08 to 19, before she came back home to us last year. So we are happy that she's here. She's such a wonderful addition to our college, and so I'm going to hand it over to you, Anna. Thank you so much for doing this tonight.
Thanks, Kendra, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for making all of this happen and for facilitating tonight. We sure appreciate it. Participants, students, and community, you're in for a treat tonight. I had the opportunity to watch the ACES, the Award of Merit alumni celebration online, and I'm a little nervous because I feel like I get to be Oprah Winfrey, and I'm going to be interviewing some famous people here tonight after listening to the presentations and all of their accomplishments. And so I'm really excited to hear about their perspectives of leadership and see what we all can learn as a community around how they have gotten to where they are now and what leadership skills they've utilized. So it's pretty exciting. I want to give you a little bit of a warning before I introduce anyone. Sometimes my lights, they're motion sensor and they go off. So if you see me get up and wave my hands, yes, I'm really excited. It will be because of that too, but it may be because my lights turned off and I need to turn them back on. So at any rate, without further ado, I'm excited to introduce our panelists tonight. And when I introduce you, if you could just give a little wave to our participants here. First up is David Gilmour. He is a Bachelor of Science graduate in 1989 in agricultural economics. He is the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Regions 3 and 4 for the Agriculture and Turf Division of John Deere out of Geneseo, Illinois. David, thank you for joining us. Mark Gossett, Bachelor of Science degree in 1983 in agricultural economics. He is the Chief Risk Officer for the Northern Trust in Naperville, Illinois. Mark, thank you for joining us tonight. Our third agricultural economics graduate, Tim Hassinger. Bachelor of Science degree in '84. He is the president and CEO of the Lindsay Corporation in Omaha, Nebraska. Thank you, Tim. And last but certainly not least is Penny Lawrenson, Bachelor of Science degree in 1986 in agriculture. She is a farm management consultant in Lanark, Illinois. Thank you for joining us, Penny. We're so excited to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
So I'll start off. Peter Nordhaus has written a number of texts that we actually use to teach leadership students and to learn and think about leadership. And he has a really great definition of leadership. That leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. I like that definition. Based on that, what do you think, what is your leadership style in your organization? What processes and behaviors do you use to lead your organization to meet its goals? David, I'll start with you.
Let me come off the mute. So I apologize. You cut out about halfway through the question, but I think I got the context. Relative to leadership style, or what process or behavior do we follow? And I think the quote, from what I picked up of your quote, resonates with me in terms of leadership that I've been able to observe in people that I've admired and really tried to emulate in a leadership position. Starts with engaging and inspiring, and understanding that if you're a manager of people, or if you have people that in your organization that have been assigned to you, as an individual, you really don't get anything done. It's through the other people that you work through, they're actually able to accomplish things. So engaging and inspiring, I think, is what I would lean on there, and just understanding that we don't get anything done if not through relationships that we build with people.
Penny, how about you? What would you say?
I guess I would back that up, David, with the fact it's a matter of team building. And I think the most recent example of that I've been involved with is our Women Changing the Face of Agriculture. Since that's a volunteer movement, it doesn't quite have the same sense that many of us are used to working with. When I did team building as a farm manager, I was working with a tenant operator of a farm that I was managing and with the owners. So we had specific goals in mind. When you start with a volunteer organization, you definitely have those goals in mind, but no one has specific roles that they're assigned to. You have to let people step forward with their specific skills and kind of let go of any preconceptions that you have and let them step forward. So that's been one of the things that I've been witnessing and been encouraged by the young people that the young women that I've been working with in this process for our Women Changing the Face of Agriculture.
Very good, Penny. Now, I have a little follow-up question, since you talked about women in leadership and working with the Women Changing the Face of Agriculture. Do you see leadership skills translating differently for women? Have you had to think about it in different ways as a woman?
When we first started this event 10 years ago, I had some young ladies who very likely work for some of the companies that you gentlemen have been involved with, and they would come forward with an idea, concept, and want approval or want encouragement. And I'd look at them and say, hey, this is your baby. If you think it should go that direction and you want to try to make it work that way, put your effort into it and go for it. So sometimes I feel like there had been a sense from this group that they needed their supervisor to tell them to go forward. So we had to step back and say, nope, we're not your supervisor. You are now the supervisor. So sometimes those under us in the business world get a sense that they need that encouragement and approval. So we've got to encourage them to step forward and be more assertive with their ideas.
Anna, Bob has just joined us, so I just wanted you to be able to give an introduction to him and to welcome him as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kendra. Penny, thank you for that follow-up as well. And hopefully we can kind of circle back to some of these follow-up questions. So Bob Johnson has been able to join us. Bob received his bachelor's degree in 1966 and his master's degree in 68 in agricultural engineering. He is the co-owner of Johnson Farms and Johnson Pate Pork Incorporated from Waterman, Illinois. Thank you so much, Bob, for joining us tonight. So Bob, we're talking about leadership styles, and I am going to pose the question that we've been discussing to Tim next. So Tim, what is your leadership style? How do you apply that in your organization?
The last couple of jobs that I've had have required more change, driving change. And that's an area that I'm comfortable doing. But on the flip side, one of the feedback I can often hear is you create stress when you're doing that. So I think David mentioned it, and I'm going to kind of piggyback on what he said. I think the best way to balance when you're driving change and then, in essence, creating some stress because of change is the ability to inspire others. So from a personal standpoint, this is an area that I spend a lot of time. How do you get better at getting feedback, et cetera? Because if you can inspire, I really think you can bridge that conflict sometimes between driving change and creating stress.
That's great. Mark, how about you? What would you say about your leadership style?
Well, it's definitely similar to the other comments you've heard around team, but I would add to some of the comments that have been made so far, because I do think at the end of the day, if you can create a high-performing team, it's not just about the leader or the manager inspiring individuals or getting them to step out, but the nirvana is well, you can get the team to interact with itself in a way that makes it more powerful as an entity. So we're very intentional about this. And follow some pretty specific processes around that. And we like to use words like curiosity over defensiveness. So it's easy to become defensive when you're debating as a team issues. And we challenge people to take their defensiveness off the table and try to be as curious as possible. Unconscious bias is a very popular topic right now because we all come in to situations with that, and recognizing that and remaining as curious as you can be really changes the learning agility of a team in pretty significant ways. They can learn from each other. We stress candor dramatically. You heard that from others as well. We call it facts versus stories. So at the end of the day, there are very few real facts that are exchanged in a lot of business challenges, but there's a lot of opinions. And recognizing when you're expressing your opinion versus when you're sharing a fact is what we challenge teams to do with each other. So you'll actually hear people say the words "my story is," and what that's code for is "this is my opinion." And we tell people to hold their story lightly. So knowing that it's your opinion, hold that opinion lightly. Be willing to change it. Be open to other ideas. Again, be open to curiosity. And then we really stress appreciation and feedback to each other. And this is really hard to do with peers. It's actually easier to give your manager feedback and to give your employee feedback. To give your peer feedback and to receive feedback from a peer is a very more difficult process in many cases. And so we challenge people to do that often and do that frequently. Sometimes that's negative feedback. Often that's positive feedback. But in essence, exchanging that kind of feedback to each other is a great way to build a team in a leadership way that makes it powerful.
Great. Great points. Oh, there's my lights. Remember, it's time for me to cheer again. All right. So Bob, we've been processing leadership styles and how people, what our panelists here have to say about their leadership style in their organization. How would you say, what would you say is your key elements of your leadership style in your business?
Well, I function in kind of two different worlds. I've been chair of a community college board of trustees for the last 14 or 15 years. We are peers there, and I would say my style there is collaboration and consensus building. There is not a dictatorship. We have president, we have very highly educated senior staff, and we have highly educated and experienced trustees. But my role is to find a consensus on some issues are more controversial than others. Some are. This morning we had a trustee exec committee meeting, and we were talking about our greenhouse, a state grant for to upgrade our greenhouse. And one of our advisory committee members said, we need to put in a state-of-the-art automatic watering, automatic nutrition to plants to teach our students what they're going to encounter in the real world. So we talked about this, senior staff and the trustees, the three of us trustees on the exec committee, for quite a while, just to get everybody's input and feedback and move on. So that would be my style on that sort of organization. I've been involved in a number of them over the years. My business, I'm in partnership with two sisters and a brother-in-law, our co-owners, and my son has joined our business. So the challenge is, I'm sorry I got here late. I just got out of a truck. We're still trying to get our harvest done. And the challenges working with family are a bit different than going home at 5 o'clock and leaving your co-workers behind, or 6 o'clock, or whatever time it is. There are more challenges and there's no one who tells anybody what to do. So consensus and collaboration is important there, but you have another element involved when your co-owners and your business partners are also your family.
So thank you, Bob. That actually prompted me for a follow-up question, and I'll let folks in the group, kind of answer as they see fit. Bob talked about having different characteristics that he employed depending on the organization that he was involved with or the nature of the context. Would any of you say also you have different qualities of leadership that you utilize depending on the organization or the context that you're in? Many of you are involved in many things in addition to your businesses.
Well, Anna, I'll jump in on that quickly, just and agree 100%. It's, we all have various leadership styles, and I think the best leaders are able to apply the appropriate leadership style to the situation that they're in. An overused word maybe is agility, flexibility, but knowing the situation, knowing what the group with which you're working needs, understanding those needs, and then applying the leadership style that best fits those needs. Very important in my view.
Great, thank you.
There's also a global aspect to it. There are different cultural norms in different parts of the world that make autocratic better in some places and democratic better in others. And so being aware of your audience and being aware of your geographic responsibility sometimes requires a real ability to transition to a different style.
Any?
I guess I would just tend to agree. I think we've kind of covered that kind of aspect, because at this stage in our lives, looking at this age group, I'd say we probably have all been through various leadership roles and various committees and volunteer organizations that it's required us to, as you say, be agile
Tim, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, in addition to the comments on the cultural differences in that, I think you also have a difference in the size of the group. Are you a more of a one-on-one small group communicator or a very large group? Those are different skill sets and can be a real differentiation and ability to get your point across.
Great point. So I'll deviate a little bit from our questions, and I promise I'll get to all of them, by the way, but you all you say new things and it makes me think of new questions that I'm dying to ask you. So thinking back across all of your experiences, what is the one thing that has been the most rewarding? And then on the other side of that coin, the most challenging about being a leader?
Well, clearly, when the team has success or individuals have success, you try to live through reflective light. So if they're successful, then it certainly shines on, in some ways, your ability to take them there. And so you're not managing. We like to say we're not managing employees, you're managing leaders ourselves. And so you're trying to really bring that team up in a more significant way. But you're not always successful. And so there's a challenging time when you're trying to move the team and or the individual forward, and either your style or your approach or your techniques don't work, and that failure falls on you as well.
Bob, what would you say about that? How would you answer that question?
Well, when you end up with something, an example, maybe I'll just thought up from our college. A number of years ago, we realized that our facilities were not adequate for our students. The college is now 52 years old, a community college west of DeKalb. David probably knows where it is, but Penny maybe.
Right where it is.
And we were not up to. There were new high schools had been built in our district that had much nicer facilities than we did. So it was a major challenge to gather the impetus to go to our voters and say, we're not keeping up with our physical plant, and ask them for $62 million referendum to do the things that we felt and people from the community felt was necessary to remain relevant. And that was a very group challenge. Elected people can't advocate for a referendum. Individuals can. So we had to put a very large team together of committed people that we could hand out facts, but we couldn't say vote yes, or we encourage you to vote for this, or that sort of thing. So there were folks that put that together. And I think that it was a very successful referendum, the most successful we'd ever had in 4 or 5 referendums. And we built all the stuff that we told, all the buildings and remodeling that we told people we would do. There's a great deal of satisfaction on being part of that effort. And none of us did it on our own, but there were a whole lot of folks that pitched in. And I happened to be chair at the time, but that isn't why it passed. It passed because of people in the community, people at the college, and people that supported it. So that would be a plus. I can't really think of anything that I regret that I was involved in over the years. So I'll leave it there and pass the baton, pass the microphone.
And David, Penny, anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump in. Clearly for me, the most rewarding or the best would be seeing the team develop and able to look back and see the progress that the progress that they've made and professionally grow. The one that I would say is the most difficult is when a decision is made because it's the right thing to do for the organization, but it negatively impacts a group of people along with that. And that is, through my career, that has always been, I would say, the most challenging piece, that you know it's the right decision, but it's not easy given the fact that some people are going to be negatively impacted by it.
David or Penny want to share?
Go ahead.
I think I'm sitting in Northern Illinois and not real sure that my whole internet system is up to speed with what I'd like it to be. There's just enough breaking up on occasion, and I'm not sure if it's at my end or in the middle. So I'll just make a comment. I guess I watch my 10 grandchildren in addition to those people that I've become involved with professionally. And when I see them pick up on a snippet of what I believe in and what I feel is one of my core values, and they run with that, it's just fun to sit back and be proud and glad that you had a little bit of an impact, no matter how minor, in making that happen.
Well, Anna, maybe I'll wrap this one up with I agree with everyone's comments relative to when leadership feels right and when it goes well. One thing that I experienced earlier in my career, and I wish I'd have known it earlier in my career, was for a long time I thought my technical skills and my technical abilities and whatever I brought to the role would be the driver of my success, working on a team or working as an individual. And it was deeper into my career when I recognized, and I had some failures around that as well, but it was deeper into my career when I realized that that's important, but it's the baseline, it's the foundation. And the primary success from a leadership standpoint, from understanding the needs of the people with which you work, and understanding that you don't accomplish anything again without building relationships, trusting relationships that can allow you to get more done as a group than you ever could as individuals. So that one took me a little while to learn, and I guess I'd lift that as a watch out or a leadership failure, but it's about relationships in the end.
I love all of those answers. We have a student question in the Q&A, and this is a really great question. So Zachary is asking us, what were some of the integral parts of your college experience that led you to achieving success within your careers? Who wants to go first? Integral parts of your college experience that led you to achieving success within your careers.
So I'll jump in. And at the end of the day, you think you're going to school primarily for the grades and the classes, and there's a lot of learning that comes out of that. But those, at the end of the day, those are just credentials. But the learnings that I think we're talking about tonight, I think develop probably outside the classroom more often. And so in many of those, you're not really doing many of those activities because you're trying to build some capabilities. You think they're going to be fun. Your friends are doing them, and so you're joining in as well. And so I think the extracurricular activities actually teach leadership in a lot of ways. They teach you how to mentor in a lot of ways. They teach you how to learn in a lot of ways, how to collaborate. All the things we're talking about tonight about leadership style, many of those I think we learned maybe unintentionally in extracurricular work where we were part of a team or leading a team or working together in various groups. And so I think that was an important part of where I first came to understand what my leadership style was and where I wanted to take it.
I'll jump in next. There's plenty of opportunities on campus for all sorts of organizations. it's been a long time for me, but I remember working on the ILEO, which all of you remember is the yearbook, and interacting with people that weren't in engineering and weren't in agriculture. But that was a broadening experience. And then, of course, the Ag Engineers Club, every organization, every major had a club of some sort. And several of us lived in ag fraternities. That was a real plus, living with people that came from your similar background and people that you stay in touch with. Many of us stay in touch with our whole lives. And we have to govern ourselves. We have to make sure that we do the right things, that we get our grades, that we stay out of trouble, that we have a good time, we have sports, and that's a broader experience than a high school experience, because you're living with these people and learning to live with them. I think that was a real plus for me.
And I would say on my side, I grew up in a small rural community, grew up on a farm. University was the first time I'd really been exposed to diversity, and also just diverse ideas and that. So that was a widening experience. I'd say the first one for me in my life was at Illinois, just seeing people that didn't look like me, had different backgrounds, things like that. So I definitely would put that high on the list.
I'll jump in. My experience was probably a little different than most. It took me 17 years to accumulate enough credit hours to graduate. So it wasn't a 4-year learning, compacted learning experience for me on campus. It was spread out over a time when I was actively involved with farm operation, actively involved with my mom in a catering business, and actively involved with raising 3 children. So nothing was typical about my college learning experience. But what I'd like to share is that 17 years of accumulating enough hours to graduate taught me that you never stop learning. No matter what, you want to keep investing in yourself, keep trying new things, keep experimenting, and don't ever think that spending a little bit of money here and there to take an extra class or to try something new has advantages. So keep at it. Don't ever stop.
David, what do you think? Are you locked up, David? Am I locked up?
Nope, I thought you might move on to the next one, but I appreciate the comments. To the student that asked the question, as I observe today's students, I think they're exemplifying much of what you heard from the other panelists. I have an opportunity to work with the Heft Technology and Management Program, and I see the experiences that those students are learning, not only in the classroom, but on the job and amongst their peers. And I can say my wife and I are 6 years into 8 years of getting our 2 to the University of Illinois as well. And again, as I see their experience and what they're learning, the diversity, as Tim mentioned, of the experiences that they have, I feel very confident that the university is delivering the types of students that our industry needs going forward. And I would just encourage you to stay engaged in activities that you're passionate about and expose yourself to things that can help you learn and move forward.
That's great advice. And so we have another student question, and thank you all for asking these questions, and keep asking them away here in the Q&A. But Vivian is asking, what is one risk that you are thankful you either took in college or early in your career? So one risk you're thankful that you took.
And I'll go.
I'll jump in.
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Sorry, Jim. My first job at Northern Trust, I've been at Northern Trust my entire career. My first role was lending money to the John Deeres and ADMs of the world as a banker. And that obviously fit my ag economics background pretty well. But early on, they came to me and asked me to move into interest rate derivatives. And they did that partly because of my futures experiences and some of the knowledge I gained there, but it was outside of an agricultural career line. And that was very confusing to me in terms of where I thought my career was headed. And in my mind, it was a risk to move away from my comfort zone of a primarily agricultural mindset. And I'm not telling people to move outside of agricultural in terms of their career paths, but at the end of the day, taking that kind of risk turned out well for me. It rounded me out. It built my brand differently at Northern Trust in a way that allowed me to go places I'm sure I couldn't have gone if I hadn't taken that risk and moved that direction.
And on my side, my family and I, we moved to China, and I was the leader of Greater China for the ag side of Dow. That was an incredible experience. Basically, everything I had learned as an American growing up, leadership style, in so many cases I had to change and adjust. I was the only non-Chinese in the team, and the only one that couldn't speak the language also. So, all the things that you relied on your entire career, whatever seemed to work, that didn't work. And so you really had to rewire your leadership approach and style. So for me, that was a breakthrough opportunity.
Wonderful.
I guess I can jump in now. I never planned to be a farmer. I had an ag teacher in high school said, if you're good in math and science, you ought to be an ag engineer. So that's what I did. And I went to work for, sorry, David, but I worked for Caterpillar for a couple of years right out of college, enjoyed it. Was moved to the Aurora plant. And one summer or one spring, my dad had some severe illness at that time. And my two roommates were both, those are engineers as well. We helped get the crop planted. And somewhere along the way, I decided I'd rather take that risk than sit at the drawing board or whatever would come next, staying at Caterpillar. And I wondered sometimes in 1980s, we had an interesting time in agriculture. A lot of farms didn't make it. Interest rates, I think somebody was talking about that. The interest rates were in the teens. And there were some real challenges in agriculture. We struggled through, made it through, and it's worked out fine, but that was probably the biggest career risk that I have taken.
I'll pop in. I guess I would say probably my whole ball game was a career risk. Whenever a lady decides to stick her toe into the water that has been probably one of the most male-dominated careers, she's probably asking for trouble. So I guess I would say just that I have been extremely fortunate to have discovered some wonderful male mentors that were more than receptive to my giving it a try back in the 80s when that wasn't necessarily the case in agriculture. And I think there's been a lot of changes in attitude toward ladies giving it a shot. But I'm not real sure if any of you are directly working with ladies in your career tracks. I know Bob has said some about having some sisters involved with the operation in that, but I'm not sure it's that way out in the corporate world. So I'll let the rest of you make your comments if you want to, but I have loved it. I've thoroughly enjoyed being involved in agriculture and hope that other young ladies will find the same opportunities.
Yeah, Anna, just you have to wave your arms again.
Yeah.
I think the common thread of the comments that were made, if you're given an opportunity and the back of your mind you say, well, I'm not sure I can do knots in your stomach to think about it, that's probably a good one to take, because it sounds like where people were stretched the most, and I can certainly say that from my experience, where I didn't think I could do it, or I was stretched the most beyond what I had experienced in the past. It was those experiences that were the most valuable.
Wonderful. We have another, I love that all of these questions are coming in. We have another question.
I'll just pop on.
Oh, sorry, Penny, go ahead.
I was just going to pop in and kind of add to David's comment. Don't feel like you absolutely have to know everything about the job that you might be interviewing for. You're going to learn some of those new skills in the new position. Buck up, be confident, take a shot.
That's wonderful. So Kurt is asking us from the Q&A, all of you have built monumental careers and one would assume a spectacular life along the way. Did you ever have any doubts? Did you experience a mid-career lull? Anyone ever have any tweaks?
Oh, I think we wouldn't be honest if any of us said that we didn't. In my case, it was having the same employer for my entire career. Is that really the right way to build a successful career, is to join one company and stay there? And I've been lucky enough to have a lot of different roles within one company, so it hasn't felt like, I'll say, a singular kind of path. It's been diverse enough geographically and job content wise, but you should keep challenging yourself around that, and you should have doubts to keep growing, because I think, as Penny said earlier, this idea of you want to keep educating, and so part of that is around building yourself for the next challenge and the next opportunity, because you want to make sure that you aren't going to stay stagnant and have doubts about where you can go without that incremental knowledge.
And on my side, I've been asked this question by students before of, did you know what you wanted to do and all that? And my career wasn't that way. It was, you took a step and then you saw new opportunities that you didn't know existed. And then you kind of took another step and you saw new opportunities. So it was more of the evolution as you went forward from that standpoint. So I would just say it's that critical part of getting experiences, and then you start to see new possibilities that you didn't even know existed before.
One of the comments that I've heard, that maybe life is different than it was in the 50s, the 80s. It's not really a ladder to success. It's more like climbing on a jungle gym. If you think about the curve out there in the playground of jumping from one bar to another and taking taking a shot that maybe one of those leaps is going to be a little too far for you, but just keep going. And I guess the other, I would just kind of make the comment, when I went into farm management, one of the requirements was that I have a real estate sales license. And I go, no way. This chick is not going to end up getting involved in real estate sales. And lo and behold, it ended up that that's what my role evolved into, was doing a lot of real estate sales for my existing clients. And I didn't ever think of myself as a salesperson. Yet I'd like to say that every student has got to take a sales class. I don't care if you never sell a product. What you might end up selling is an idea or a concept that your team needs to take on. So don't take away from, well, or emphasize, I guess I want to emphasize that you need those sales skills to either promote yourself at some point or an idea, maybe not a product.
Fantastic. And so that's a really great segue into another question that we have in the chat, is about what else would you encourage students to take advantage of to build their skills, whether it be experiences, courses, what else would you encourage students to take advantage of and to learn about, to be the best prepared coming into careers?
This is partly COVID driven, but not completely. And that's stress management is one of the things that will change when you go from student life to professional life. You have stress as a student, you have different kinds of stress as a professional and as an employee. And the more you can learn around time management and how you deal with that most effectively, and stress management and how you mitigate that most effectively for your kinds of issues, I think is more important than you might think. And again, a lot of people are feeling that mentally now during COVID and the world that we're living in. But even in a more normal environment, there will be periods that you'll need to figure out how to deal with stress and deal with time management challenges in your professional life. And sometimes you don't think about that as a skill you can build, but it is.
I'll jump in here. One thing I think would be helpful for almost any student would be internships of some sort, even if it takes an extra semester or year to get through school. Foreign study as it would be another one, but when you study for a career and you never have practiced those skills in the business world, you might make a 4-year. You might head one direction for 4 years and get out, get a job, and realize that's not really quite what I had in mind. So I would encourage any student. We encourage at our community college, get on the job experience in some fashion, internships or summer jobs or however you describe it. Would be a plus, I would think, for most students.
Yeah, I would add to that as well. I know on campus Research Park is a great place to go and pick up short-term practical work experience. I think Tim gave a great example of when he was in China, and it was an opportunity where everything he relied on, he had to find a way to adapt. And whether it was culturally, whether it was language, if you can put yourself in a situation where maybe you're not super well prepared and you can show that you adapted to the situation that you were in and were successful, those are things that we look for as we're hiring full time.
And on my side, because of COVID, I think the adjustment would be is go deep versus wide, because it's hard to get a lot of context. And what I have found in my career is there's very few professionals that turn down a student that want to talk. And when a student gets an opportunity to have interaction with someone that's already in the field, I would just encourage them to follow up and say, listen, could I do a follow-up call or anything like that? And I'm sure it's not 100% success rate, but I would predict it's a very high percentage. And I just think it's a time where you're not going to get a lot of context as easy as it would have been, pre-COVID. So I just stay with that theme. Go deep. What context you do get, really try to learn as much as you can from them and gain from their experiences.
Very insightful. Yes. Circling back to Mark's comment about stress and time management, we had a great question in the Q&A about how do you personally do that? How do you personally engage in mindfulness, engage in stress management, time management, all of those kinds of issues? What's worked for you? Looks like I'm seeing
I'm
Penny.
going to jump in and just, I'm going to jump in and just say, be careful what you say yes to. There's nothing more critical to you and your family in the choices that you make for extra activities, extra workload. And if you do say yes, then be prepared to follow through. There's nothing more discouraging than working with someone that has said, oh yes, yeah, I can do that. I have those skills, and find out 2 months later when you thought they had taken care of all of that it wasn't done. So just be mindful of your skills, what you can accomplish, and what time frame you need to accomplish those in.
And I would also jump in and say, know what environment is when you can kind of get your thoughts together. And if you want to say one small positive for COVID on a personal side is working from home. I've kind of gotten in the habit of taking a walk in the afternoon. And for whatever reason, that seems to be when the ideas get clear. My team hates it because I always call them when I'm taking a walk, and usually it ends up them doing something. So they're not a big fan of this, but it definitely helps me just kind of level set. And I don't know what it is. Things get clearer when I do that. So everybody's probably got their own way of doing that. And I think it's important to know what works for you.
I think you want to be intentional with the people that you spend time with. It's typically a family kind of comment, but I think you want to think through that, who is that centering relationship that does that for you, because you only have so much time. And so you want to make sure you're doing it with the people that are taking you in the direction you want to go to. In terms of time management, I put my mentees through an exercise I call the Genius exercise, where it's a 4-box grid and it says, what am I good at and what am I not good at? Those are the 2 rows. The columns are, what do I like to do? What do I not like to do? And we go through a pretty detailed list of activities in their job, and we put each piece in one of those quadrants. And the quadrant that is, I like to do it and I'm good at it, is what we call the Genius Quadrant. And if you stay in that quadrant as much as you can, and you're conscious about that, it tends to bring a whole nother level of both time management and stress management to it. If you spend most of your time in, I'm not good at it and I don't like to do it, you can imagine the level of stress and anxiety and frankly, time effectiveness that you'll find there. So just being conscious and knowing where your genius is what I tell people to think about in their professional life.
So a related question that has come up in the Q&A here is what are some of your tips from that for balancing that work-life balance? How do you manage that?
I think building on one of the words that Mark used is just being intentional. and face it, there are times where there is no balance. And I think, at some point we have to understand that things get out of balance. And for points in time, you can do that. And the word that I would use more often is, well, how do you manage that? And I think back to even the first question that you asked on this vein, Anna, just in terms of, for me, I need to take time at the beginning. For me, it's at the beginning of the day, just to be by myself, and people will do yoga, they'll meditate. For me, it's prayer. And if I can start my day intentionally, with starting slow, getting a gauge on what I value the most, and then launch into the day from there. It's likely a day that doesn't have balance beyond that, but it at least sets the tone at the beginning.
Great tip. Does anyone else want to share a tip?
I don't know if it's a tip, but it's just reality is, I know on a personal side, having a spouse that will hold you accountable if you are getting too far the other way is very helpful. So I think in all seriousness, having people around you or empowering other people to be comfortable to share with their view if it is getting out of balance, I think is really healthy.
Well, one thing that's helped me in the last, 4 or 5 years, my son, who's 32 now, only son, never wanted to be a farmer. He wanted to be an attorney, and went to good law schools, practiced law for a couple of years, and then came to us, I guess about 5 years ago now, and says, I think I'd like to give this a shot. Joining the family business. And we're in a transition now, trying to work out retiring some of my siblings, and he moving into more of a management role. So that's been, he keeps me on my toes. He's very bright. We have many conversations. I've been the business manager of our businesses for years, and my partners are big people. They're very good at what they do, but they're not particularly interested in the business side of things. They just like to see the results when they're done. But it's been very, very challenging and interesting, and he asks very, very good questions. Why are we doing things that way? Why does it take 4 people to move pigs from the electronic sow feeder pens into fairing pens when one person might be able to do it and the other 3 can do something else? That's an example from today, but there's lots of those questions that he challenged me with. So it's given me more enthusiasm at this point in my life to see what's next.
So we are running close on time, and this has been a fabulous discussion. But I have one last question. It was posed in the chat here. And I would like to, hopefully a few of you, all of you have a chance to answer this. What is one word or phrase? I think it's a great way to close this out too. What is one word or phrase that you would use to describe your career or life? One word or phrase that you would use to describe your career/life. Takes some thought, doesn't it? Mark's nodding his head, so I'm going to start with Mark.
Well, thanks a lot. I'll say the word and then I'll explain it. I think culture. Because I really do think we've talked a lot about tonight about kind of our leadership style, really our personal culture, if you will, our professional culture. And I do believe if you align yourself with organizations and people that have a similar culture to you, and there's lots of successful cultures in the world. Some people are hard charging, eat what I kill kind of companies, very successful. Some are more, I want to be a high integrity company. If you align yourself with organizations that have a similar culture as you do professionally and personally, I think you'll find success and you'll find happiness in many ways that way. And so I've been lucky enough to have that. The culture of this organization really aligns very well with how I live my life and how I act professionally, and that's helped me succeed.
Tim.
Unexpected. Many different experiences that I never dreamed of having, and frankly didn't even know were possible when I was growing up. So in many cases, it's just been something I didn't think would happen or ever thought of it happening.
Wonderful. David.
Yeah, it's hard to pick one word, but I think for me, it's around change. In a manufacturing organization like John Deere, I'm just amazed at the people who can go to a production line and do the same thing the right way with a high level of quality and put out perfect product every day for 30 years in their career. And it's really the same thing. My career, and I have to remind myself of this, is chaotic. And every day needs to be different, and I enjoy that. That's part of what I enjoy, and it's back to Mark's comment on, are you doing something that you enjoy? If I had to do the same thing exactly the same way every day, I'd go crazy. So a little bit of chaos and change, and just being able to adapt to a different situation is rewarding, and I've been blessed to experience that in my career.
Any?
I guess I will pick up on David's last word, and it looks like maybe I'm in an unstable internet connection, so not sure how well it's coming across. Yeah, I guess awesome, but chaotic. It really, really is a roller coaster ride. There are days that you're up and on a high, like today when we're sharing something like this with one another. But the reality is that there are days that can be extremely low. And all you can do is just that old classic, tie a knot in the end of the rope and hang on. I don't know how else to describe it.
Absolutely. And Bob.
The word I've used, and I've used this other times, is gratitude for all the opportunities in life, the people I've been associated with in all sorts of, Penny and I go back farther than any of the rest of you. So gratitude for that experience all those years ago, gratitude for the people I've worked with, my family, the opportunities life's given us to do. So to me, at this point in life, I think I'm the oldest one in the room here. That would be probably my one word.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to let Kendra close this out for us, but I will end with two words here. That's grateful and inspired. I learned a lot tonight, and I thank you so much for everything that you shared with all of us. And thank you for being here. Kendra, I'll let you close things out.
I did too. I don't know if you all can see this in the chat. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I was an advisor on Exploraces when this young alum, Kurt Hansen, when I met him, gosh, almost 10 years ago. And he says, as a young alum with 6 years in the working world, this is all spectacular advice for current students. Take notes, Illini. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this. It feels like it's been almost a year, and it has been, between everything that's happened. And thank you for your patience and your kindness to me. But thanks for being such loyal and dedicated alums. I mean, you're outstanding in so many different ways. It's been so wonderful to get to know each of you in different ways as well. So thanks for joining us. A big thanks to Anna. Awesome. Totally the next Oprah. Another thanks to Marla. Noelle, as you've gotten to know Noelle, she's our student intern, and she's been outstanding and helps us with so much. And another thanks to Jacob. He is our IT expert and, you know, calming our nerves all the time when we were starting to do this. So we knew it'd be quick, but we didn't know it would be so quick. The questions, we could do this for another hour, and maybe we should just do that another time. But in efforts to keep this at about an hour or hour 5, I'll close and thank you. We did record this, so we'll get all that up on the website. If you have any questions, as always, just reach out to us at the Alumni Association.